Welcome to Movies with Jett. Little change up. This week's movie of the week is actually a television series that ran from the 1970s to the late 1970s. It was brought back later around the late 90s, but that's not worth mentioning. The solid years of this particular show was the 70s. The show in which I'm talking about is Columbo. Now, I'm going to get into a few things about Peter Falk and other actors as there's been a debate going on. But first, for anyone who doesn't know what Columbo is and why it's pro-white, the Jett will tell you. First, let's begin with how Columbo works. It's not a whodunit where you don't, the crime will happen, you won't see the murder, and you'll have to guess along with the detective of whom of the suspects actually committed the crime. In Columbo, you immediately see the murder, and then the interest in the show is how Columbo, played by Peter Falk, will actually solve the crime. Columbo, the character, is a first-generation American Italian police officer. He's very moral. He has a wife. He doesn't cheat. The big character development around him is that he is essentially he plays a klutz, a dumbass, but he's not, and this is how he usually fools the murderer into revealing information and so forth. But usually Columbo actually, he's smart. He only plays dumb. He understands the crime. The reason I'm giving Columbo the pick of the week is I originally wanted to give it to the film Devil's Own, which is an Irish film. It's an Irishman's film on what America should be, and then halfway through the screenplay, it seems like an American, kind of like Louis Worth, the Jew from University of Chicago, who planned urban renewal, takes it over. Essentially, I'm not even going to bother with the plot of The Devil's Own. It's something about an IRA. It stars Brad Pitt, Harrison Ford, who is half Jewish, and I don't mind. I think he's a perfectly fine actor. The problem with the film is that it is offensive to the Irish. I mean, you understand. First of all, the movie paints a portrait that New York is controlled by the Irish, which you can listen to Reading with Jets. New York has firmly been controlled by Jews since the 1650s or something like that. Okay, so there's the fact that it paints the Irish as controlling New York. Second, what it really boils down to is, here's the plot in 2 seconds. Brad Pitt is this ultra IR Lee brain, planner, Irish Republican Army planner, comes over to America to buy guns, which in reality he would be going to Israel or somewhere over there where the gun trade actually takes place. Anyway, so he goes to America. He's essentially sponsored by Harrison Ford, who is Irish to the T, and this is where it gets offensive to the Irish. He has red hair kids. I mean, if this was a Nazi film and he had blonde hair, it's the equivalent of having a blonde-haired kid. I mean, it was, I don't get it. Like, we get the point, the characters are supposed to be Irish. You don't need to give the kids all red hair. So, there's that point. And there's also there's a scene in which his Harrison Ford's daughter gets confirmed, and then rather at her confirmation party, so see, it's bringing about Irish Catholics, at her confirmation party, rather than have a band or normal American music, they do an Irish jig. So it's offensive. I mean, it's America, not Ireland, and this is in the 1930s. It's like I said, a kind of an an Irishman's opinion on what America is like, and then halfway through, which I'll explain now, the Irish American takes over. What I mean by that is I'm going to spoil the ending because this film's been out since 1993. Harrison Ford is a police officer, and he's also Irish. And Brad Pitt has to buy guns or something for the IRA and bring them back. Ford discovers this and essentially wants to stop the transportation of the I believe Stingers. This is in '93, so the Desert Storm Stingers were going around, and it ends with on the boat leaving the New York harbor with Ford shooting. Ford shooting Brad Pitt, and there is a deep meaning here, and the deep meaning is that it is the Irish American killing his ancestral heritage. He doesn't care about Harrison Ford in this case, who's playing Dave O'Mara, a Chicago cop, or excuse me, a New York cop. He doesn't care about what's going on in Ireland. He doesn't understand the bigger spectrum. I mean, there's a backstory to Brad Pitt's character on why he got in the IRA, which is something to do with his father getting killed when Brad Pitt's character was like 6, and it really just deteriorates into a Harrison Ford beat 'em up, and the point is, IRA are bad. It just falls apart at the end, and if you have Irish friends, don't show them this film. They're going to be very offended. It's almost as offensive as the Boondock Saints, which was an equally as horrible film as The Devil's Own. So, to recap, Devil's Own sucks. It's offensive to Irish. The first 10 minutes where they shoot a lot of British soldiers is really the best part. And Columbo, any season 1 through 7, although the first 3 would be the best, especially the episodes with Robert Culp. What I want to highlight really quick about Columbo is that it features the white genius. Columbo's white. He's an Italian. And in real life, there's actually been some kind of rumors that Columbo is Jewish, which I think come from pro-Jew fans, because there is no heritage, there is no evidence that he's Jewish at all of the, according to Peter Falk himself, he is Russian and Polish, and he's not Italian. So the issue is that he's not Italian, not that he's not Jewish. This is kind of similar to Charles Bronson, where people thought he was Jewish, but in fact he was just Polish and Russian, I believe, or something like that. So, really quick about the Columbo again. It brings back the white genius. Columbo's not dealing with niggers or low-ball crime. It is people who are doing premeditated murder, who have a solid alibi, usually a solid plan, and if it was any other detective who wasn't a genius, they would pretty much walk free. And you have to keep in mind it's a TV show, so you will say to yourself, maybe a few episodes, like, would this hold up in court? But nonetheless, it's a more of an interesting show. It's better than that Jewed up Law and Order. And almost everyone on this Columbo show is white, and it's white genius. The crimes are pretty sophisticated. It's a crime, it's violent, but not that barbaric. It's more about the genius of the crime and the genius of the detective and how the detective is going to solve the crime. And there's much more. There's a lot of comedy in this. And actually, if you've ever heard of the detective show Monk, which is fairly recent, Monk is the Jewish ripped off cheap version of Columbo. So fans, sorry I was a little tiffed about this. I wanted to give it to The Devil's Own, Jett's Pro White Movie of the Week, but I couldn't, and I'm going to give it to the Columbo seasons 1 through, basically any of them, but 1 through 5 are the solid, and you can get them anywhere on Netflix, wherever. Thanks for listening.